All right, everyone. A big mabuhay around the world and live from Manila, from Taguig. Here we are. And so in the Philippines, it's Christmas Eve, but I thought I'd give a quick shout out. I know my last video, I talked about how to find a lovely Filipina girlfriend or bride. They're out there, they're looking for you, especially on these holidays. So get out there and try to find them. Look to my other video for my sort of strategies or sort of the path I went through. But today I thought I'd go through, a big problem that a lot of foreign men have or foreign boyfriends have. And that is, how do you know if your girlfriend is a scammer from the Philippines? And it's very a hard topic, a difficult topic, because we don't like to accuse somebody of something, of stealing, especially when it comes to love. It can really, hurt very badly. And you have to be careful. And some people don't want to hurt the other person. And, it's very difficult sometimes to actually know what's going on, especially if you haven't met this person face to face or you haven't been to the Philippines. So I thought I would kind of help you guys out there. So if you meet a Filipina, a lovely Filipina, or a few, or what have you, how can you tell that you might be dealing with someone who's a little unethical, from opposed to someone who's just maybe asking for a little help or another situation. So in any event, I can tell you straight up that most Filipinas are not going to ask you for money. I never had one ask me for money, okay, that I met online. They didn't ask me. My wife, when I first met her, she was having also some, dental issues, which is kind of, common in the Philippines. And I said, let me help you with that because, you did this so you'd look good when you saw me. And it was a big expense for her. Even a couple $100 is a huge expense in the Philippines. Many of these women are helping support their families. And so, that's where the money issue comes from. They're very happy girls. They're very friendly girls. You wouldn't think they have, a lot of problems, but that, life in the Philippines can be tough. It can be difficult, especially with monetary situations. There's usually lots of family members and there might be issues, and they dealt with it before. And unless it's a real tragic situation, they can kind of navigate their way around it. But, I wanted to help. That was, when I met my wife, Priscilla, for the first time, I said, listen, let me help you out a little bit. You spent all this money on your teeth to look good. And she goes, no. We're not committed yet, and I'm not taking your money. You don't owe me that money. You don't owe me anything. And later on, after we got engaged, I came back my second time when we were going to get married. She accepted a small amount to help finish off her teeth, the procedures. But she wouldn't take any money. All right. And I think most of them, when I dealt with them, the Filipinas, and they were from different parts of the Philippines, they never asked me. And that the issue never came up. So I would say, how can you tell you're dealing with a scammer? I would say that, number one, they're asking you for money up front. They may tell you a terrible story or something like that. And right up front, they may say that. And that would, that would make you a little leery. And of course, some of these stories are going to, could be heart wrenching. And some of them may be true. I don't know. But, that might be a sort of a red flag. If you get that the first time or in the third or fourth email or something like that, you may sort of say, hey, what's going on. But, even the problem with the internet is, if you haven't, sometimes you can talk to a person, even video chat, and you develop this bond, this relationship, and you want it to move forward and you feel a closeness. And, people that are scammers are very good at that, and they can kind of, they know how to pull your heartstrings and pull you a little bit. And so it's kind of difficult. And so maybe, in the beginning, it may be just a little bit of money, maybe, or then they start asking for larger amounts. But I keep hearing stories of people sending large amounts of money. Um, and I don't know why they're doing that. Of course, I understand they want a relationship, but the point being, that doesn't make logical sense. You don't really know this person, although you do develop a deep connection, and you want to love that person. And so, you might want to commit to that, financially. But I mean, it's not a good idea. And like I said, the stories may be tough. But my wife, who and her family, who had trouble sometimes, they know how to navigate. They know how to make it through when they have to, even though it could be really tough for families in the Philippines, especially if you meet a province girl or something like that, and they're way out there in the province. Things can be tough. Basic things we take for granted, well, just like even like food, can be tough sometimes with big families. Or if something unexpected happens and they lose their job, or in this case, we have a typhoon moving in for Christmas, and these poor families, are hit with these typhoons, and they can lose their house, they can lose all their food, and that's devastating for them. In the Philippines, there isn't government help, but most Filipinos are not going to ask you for help. They're very, very proud people. If they don't really know you, they're not going to ask you for that money. They're not going to do it. Unless, I mean, maybe if they're really, really desperate, like let's say, the typhoon wiped out everything, they may. But I don't. Many of them, if a day-to-day situation, are not going to do that. They're very ethical people, very proud people. Now, of course, there are scammers everywhere. I'm not going to try to say there aren't scammers in the Philippines, because we know there are, just like there's scammers in the U.S. In my last video, I said, we have a lot of men that lie to the Filipinas and don't really tell them, their financial circumstances. And so, I'm kind of being, taking a middle road here. If you go out there and tell a Filipina you're wealthy, you're rich, here's my car, trying to impress her, she'll be like, hey, well, guy's got plenty of money. Maybe if he can just give me a little bit, that'd be great. But I just be honest with them when you first meet them. And of course, if you're a multimillionaire, well, sending a few bucks maybe isn't that big of a deal, even though maybe you shouldn't do it. That relationships are built upon trust and honesty, and when it's just built on money, um, it's really not going to work. One of those shows I constantly watch, this show 90 Day Fiance, because it reminds me like what I was going through, and it kind of it can be really, really tough. And so, like, when you first meet a Filipina, I never had one ask me for money, ever. Okay. Now, after, of course, you've met them. Now, what you can do, I mean, my wife would accept gifts. Like, so if you sent flowers, or you sent, I don't know, a small gift, there are those places, they can get delivered. They will do that. But, they want you to know, too, that they want a relationship as well. They don't want to be seen as a scammer or someone who's just robbing somebody. They don't want to be seen as that. So I don't, a real great Filipina is not going to ask for money, especially if she doesn't really know you. She'll be embarrassed by that. She'll be upset by asking you. Now, they will accept small gifts, like you would do for any girlfriend. And I did send gifts, before I met my wife in face to face. I spent small gifts. I'd buy it online, and they would be delivered of flowers, and they really, really appreciate that. The other thing you can do, if you really, if this relationship has gone on for a couple of months and it's a holiday, you can always ship a Belloc buy-on box. If you don't feel comfortable, sending money can be very uncomfortable. Belloc buy-on, is one of these large, flat rate boxes that are very famous in the Philippines. For like $50, you could send a box or something of food, and that would be really well appreciated around the holidays, because people don't realize that for the holidays, Filipinos spend lots and lots of money, even if they don't have it, to have a great time, and also it's kind of a harbinger or indication for a prosperous year. People go out and they go to money lenders and stuff just for getting food and other kinds of things for the holidays, but mainly just food. And so if you met this girl and you know her for a few months, or it's coming to a holiday and you feel some kind of connection, and I wouldn't say it's like you met her once or twice, but you met her for maybe 3 or 4 or 5 months. It's going to be a holiday. You can always sell a Bellic buy-on box. Go down to Costco, buy some canned goods, canned ham, corned beef hash, Spam, stuff like that. Make a little package. They would really, really like that. They would enjoy that. So, I mean, there are things you can send if you want to build a relationship. It doesn't have to do with sending cash or money that you can think about. Now, once you have met your Filipina and you've come to the Philippines and you've made that leap of faith and you've met them, I've heard stories where Filipinas then, when they're the girlfriend, they start asking for money, they start asking for more. That's up to you, what you're going to do about that situation. The first thing, like I said, is be honest with them and say, listen, I'm not a rich guy, and explain to them. You have to understand that when they, because the U.S. used to, the Philippines used to be part of the U.S. as a colony, they have this image of the U.S. as being this great place where there's lots of money and everyone has money and food and big houses and big cars. And we know, those of us that have been to America, especially recently in the last 10 years, that really isn't the case anymore. It's harder and harder to make a dollar. And even when there was lots of money in America, not a lot of people, some people didn't have a lot of money, but especially now it's hard to make ends meet. So they hear salaries of like, 50,000, 70,000 US dollars, when, for here, like, making like 500 US dollars a month is a big deal. That they'd be like, well, dreaming about that, but they don't understand the expenses that go through into the US, like, how much it costs for gas, for a car, for medical insurance, for food, for all these necessities in the US. And it really helps, if you meet her family or meet her, not to cry or complain about things, because, they have a hard life too. But if you kind of make them understand right up front, hey, you may think I have a lot of money, but let me tell you, it's tough in the U.S. And say, listen, I'm not complaining. I'm not saying that we don't have it good in the U.S., but, things are not as great as you think they are. This is how much everything costs. And when they hear stuff, they're like, whoa, are you kidding me? Like, wow, that's so expensive. And so, you have to kind of tell them that about your financial situation and let them know. Otherwise, what's going to happen is that you're going to be viewed as kind of a greedy person, because they think that you are very, very wealthy and you don't want to share. And they're going to say, oh, they're greedy and things like that. But you can just give, like, when you go out or take people out to eat or something like that. I mean, that shows that you're a generous. But hey, listen, this doesn't just have to do with Americans and their Filipina girlfriends. When you have members of the family who are OFWs, overseas foreign workers, they save all their money. So when they come back every 5 years, they pay for everything for the family when they come back, and they run into debt. Seriously, you hear one story, like, I saved $7,000. I spent the whole thing, or I didn't have enough money, so I charged a credit card and I just paid it off, and I'm going back again. It's one of those things. It's just that people expect you because they think you're making a lot of money, and some people are embarrassed to say, no, I'm really not. Filipinos that come back even do this, and if they don't, their family members may get a little disappointed with them or get upset, and all you can do is maybe you do it once or whatever, and you say, listen, that's it. And some people may get angry. I mean, this is what happens. This isn't an isolated situation just with Americans. It's also with other Filipinos. And eventually what happens, even with the women and the men, is they eventually go, I've had enough. I'm sorry. I've done this for years and years, and I've sent money home. I'm doing that. I got to look out for myself now. And and the families usually understand, but there can be hard feelings on that. And so, you know, if the Filipina girlfriend doesn't understand that when you meet them face to face, or even if you tell them over, the video, that's probably not the girl for you. They're probably looking for something or something else, or they're looking for a guy with more money or something like that. But I can honestly say that most Filipinos are looking for love, and of course, if the person has money, that's a plus, and they're gonna view you as having lots of money. But you have to explain to them the situation, your financial situation. And for most of us, we're not millionaires or anything like that. And you also have to tell them, the truth is that if I do marry you and you come to the U.S., it's going to cost me a lot of money. Um, just going to the Philippines is going to cost you like 50, maybe 1,000 if you go cheap with the airline. And if you stay at her house, it's cheaper. But if you stay in a hotel, you can get pretty cheap Airbnbs and stuff, and it's going to cost you, I don't know, $2,000 or $3,000. So like when I came, I spent $5,000 in the first trip. I came back like 4 months, 5 months later, got married. And so, that was a huge expense for the wedding. I mean, not as much as the US, but still for me, I didn't make that much, paying for the first trip and paying for the wedding and paying for all the immigration fees. Man, it adds up. I mean, you're talking, big bucks for someone who doesn't have a lot of money. And so we can even talk about the immigration thing later on, the K-1, the K-2s, and that kind of thing, and how you can do that. But, when you're first going through this, and the other thing is, with the language barrier and in talking about money, those things are not good, and emotions running high, because they always are about money. So, I mean, even if it's a legitimate reason why the Philippine is asking for money, they might be upset. Maybe someone had to go to a hospital, maybe she or something, and she's just trying to raise a few bucks. Uh, if she's known you for a while or something like that, she's going to be upset. You're going to be upset, and that's something you guys are going to have to work out. Even if it's a legitimate kind of thing. But you don't want to get into the situation where you're sending every month and you're not even haven't even met the girl, or you're not engaged or married, or if you're going to stay boyfriend and girlfriend. I don't know. I mean, that's kind of a big, kind of a big task there, a big reach to be sending money every month. But I know there are people that probably do it. And that's something that you're going to have to think about, because, if you break up or this person may not be truthful, that money adds up. And you hear these stories that people sent, maybe over the years, $5,000, $10,000 dollars, or $100 here a month, or $200 here a month. And this doesn't just happen to Americans, with their fiancés. This happens to Filipinos who are working overseas too. And you'll hear stories where they sent money home for years and years. And let's say they're supposed to be paying for a house or paying for something, and the person shows up, they go, "Hey, where's the house?" And they go, "Oh, sorry, we spent it on other stuff." I mean, it happens to their own family members, that people don't use the money appropriately. So, is that scamming? With a family, I mean, I don't. That's up for you guys to decide. But I mean, like, hey, when money is involved, I mean, there's a business kind of component and a heart component going on here, and you kind of have to, like, I don't know, kind of think, and feelings can get crushed. People can get upset. I know, like, I was watching some videos where this gentleman met a younger Filipina, and the father was asking for some money, and it wasn't a terrible amount. And the guy felt like, hey, we're off to the wrong foot. And he gave some money and he helped the family out a few times. But the guy kept insisting on money, and the guy didn't want to continue that. And that's fair. That's okay. Um, that's the way things go. And if you don't feel good about something, then you should move on. On the other hand, I mean, If you really like the girl and you don't think they're really scamming you and the money is going for some food or something like that, or paying for something that's legitimate, or it's a really small amount, maybe the guy's buying cigarettes or something. I don't know. Something that's not terribly bad or evil. I mean, if you know, it's up to you. But I certainly wouldn't be sending a lot. If and I wouldn't be sending it every month unless I really was involved with the person, and then I would have to, sort of let them know that, yeah, I don't know. And it's difficult. It was difficult for us in our relationship with that and sending money home to the family. We can talk about that in another video. And it's tough, and the best, I mean, especially now. I mean, I thought when my wife came over to the US, this is before we moved to the Philippines, just last month, but when back in the US, I thought, she was a professional. She'd get it, the job openings would be good. But, since the recession, the jobs haven't been that great. And that's what puts even a bigger strain, and not just international marriages, but marriages in the U.S. I'm sure since the recession in 2007, 2008, many marriages have broken up over money because people have lost their jobs. So, this is a thing that's tough all over. But I mean, I would think, and this is what I feel, okay? If you really liked the girl and you met her in face to face and the father asked you for a little bit of money, if you really liked them and it was like $20 or something, I don't think that's such a big deal. But of course, to help with their expenses or something. That's me personally. Now, some people would say no, and some Filipinos would say no. But to me, if the father came and asked me, can I have a little bit of money for this? And it wasn't a tremendous amount, as an act of good faith, as an act that, you're looking to help the family out, I would do that. But I would make it very, very clear that this is all I can afford. And I don't know if I can afford it every month, but I'll send just a little bit of what I can to help with the family. That's what I would say. And if that wasn't enough, I would say, well, maybe I got to move on here. Maybe I got to do something else, which is difficult. And I know some people are going to disagree with what I'm saying. The point is, though, is that to me, and that's just the way I am, is I want to show a good gesture of good faith. So if I wasn't going to send money, if I didn't want to send money, I would send a Bellet Bion box with some food in it. That's what I would do, and say, listen, I can't send money, but, I can get this stuff cheap. Here's some food. Here's some stuff you can use around the house. And if they're really sincere people and not scammers, they'll take it, but I wouldn't go crazy with sending, boxes and boxes or money and money. If you want to make a gesture of good faith and, buy a few things when you meet your girlfriend or, future wife, or you want to help a little bit with sending the kid to school, but just a tiny bit, maybe buy some school supplies or something. And then explain to them your financial situation and cap it, I think that you'd be okay. But now, back to the main issue here, how do you know she's a scammer? Well, if they keep asking for money, you haven't met them. That's a scammer, okay? And, some Filipinas or Filipinos are going to think, well, they have plenty of money, so it's not that big a deal. Well, that is stealing, and most Filipinos are not going to do that. So that's how you can tell you have a scammer. Especially if you're an older man, you got a really young girl, maybe that's what it is, okay? And you got to move on. My thing is that if you set, nowadays we call them boundaries, or you set your limits, like we said in the old days, and just say, hey, no, I don't know you well enough, then you'll know right away. If you get to develop a relationship over 5 or 6 months and it's Christmas, or especially if you go and meet the girl and then they start asking for a little bit, just let them know. And if they're really in it for the long haul and in it for love, they'll go, we understand. And Filipinos understand money. You just say, listen, you may think we don't have money. I don't have money, but I'm willing to give a tiny bit. And that's enough, I think, to make everyone sort of, not really hate each other and build a little bit of a bridge. Now, some people might say, don't give anything. That's up to you. I always felt like you build a small bridge and, so people don't have any hard feelings, but it doesn't have to be a tremendous amount of money. Okay. It doesn't have to be, it's just a gesture of good faith. It doesn't have to be $100 every month. It doesn't have to be 500 every month. It's something I'm sending a little bit to help you out. And if they're not happy with that, well, then they're probably not in it for love and the family's not supportive. But, the sad part of this is that it puts the Filipina in a bad situation. And you hear some stories about the Filipinas getting kicked out of their house. And, oh, man, because they say, no, you shouldn't be asking my boyfriend for money. And the father gets upset and says, well, you need to help pay. And they kick the girl out. Then they have to find a place to live. And, that's another tough kind of situation. I don't know how you handle that. That's why I'm suggesting that, it's just a small gesture of good faith, a care package or a few, maybe $20 or something, and I don't mean all the time or every day or every month, but just a little gesture of good faith to let them know you're not, greedy or, not holding all the money to yourself. Some people will think like that, that you're a rich American and you're greedy. And, and you don't have to give the money, that's fine. I always felt giving a little bit amount and just saying, listen, that's all I can do. And I hope that helps a little bit. And if you don't want to do that with the money, and send a care package or, buy something like school supplies or a small amount, but you're not obligated. You're not obligated. And, but, you have to kind of understand the family dynamics a little bit of this. But if the people get too demanding and they expect too much, then they may be a scammer. Whether they're like a real scammer or not, if they expect too much, then you have to let them know, no, this is not going in the right direction for me. This ain't working for me. You're not respecting me either. I offered to help just a tiny bit because, I do have a tiny bit, but not every month or whatever. And say, I've had it. That's it. Sorry. And then, maybe the family goes, okay, we're sorry. But a good family is going to not demand too much. And they'll just say, listen, whatever you can send, that would be great if you can. But the big thing is the communication, because even though Filipinos speak English, when you talk about money and things get like that, people don't really understand. And then there's this expectation, even if you're a Filipino working abroad or you're an American, they think you're a millionaire. They think you have lots of money. And you just have to, I guess, get that message across. No, I don't have a lot of money. And if you know the girl long enough, you met her face to face, you're serious, you can offer like a little bit of help if you want to, but you don't have to. And that will determine whether you think they're a scammer or not a scammer. But if they demand money up front, no, that's probably someone looking just to scam. If they ask for little bits of money, then they keep asking for bigger and bigger amounts, that's probably a scammer too. A legitimate girl is not going to ask for money up front. If you meet them and then they start asking for little things like to help with like jeepney rides or like things like that, small amounts, because they need transportation to work or like $10 or something a month. To me, that's not a scammer. That's not a big deal for me. Some people might interpret that as scamming. I don't. If it's just a small amount of money, like what you'd pay for a drive-through, and I don't mean like every day or maybe it's just $10 a month or $15 a month or something like that to help her get to work or something. To me, that doesn't really bother me, but it may bother others. That's up to you to decide. And it all depends, how this relationship goes over time. And if you think that too much money is going in one direction, then you just say, sorry, I got nothing. Some people will say, well, it's once you start giving money, they'll expect more. It doesn't have to be that way. Just say, this is all I have. And like I said, this is hard feelings also for Filipinos that work overseas. They got to do the same thing. And eventually they have to say, sorry, I can't send any more money. And then it falls back on the family and the girl, when you can't send the money, to see how they react to it. And if they say, okay, well, we appreciate it, thanks, then you're probably dealing with honest people and people that understand you as well. Any event, we've hit the 30-minute mark. And so I hope you have a great Christmas. Christmas Eve in the Philippines right now. I know it's the 23rd in the U.S. And we'll talk soon. See you later. Take care. Big mabuhay around the world. Bye-bye.